If you're a Christian woman, how are you going to know when a man is interested in you? Sometimes it's obvious. If he asks you out on a date or he's just being very open about his feelings, that's one thing. But a lot of Christian guys take things a lot slower to gauge whether or not the feelings are mutual with the woman. So in this video, we're going to talk about 5 subtle signs that mean a man is gently pursuing a woman to gauge her interest level. Number 1, an increase in his frequency in approaching you can be a sign that he's gently pursuing you to gauge whether or not you're interested. Has a guy been approaching you month after month at church and just small talking with you? Or is there a guy at work who always stops by your desk every morning just to share the office struggles? Well, honestly, a guy who's doing that type of thing probably is not interested in you. And I say that because if he's doing this month after month, he would have probably done something more by now if he had romantic interest. Now, let's say that a guy at church who wasn't approaching you very often, now a few Sundays in a row has come up to you and is just small talking with you. That could be a sign that he's trying to gauge your interest level in him because he's interested in you. Or if a guy who wasn't sitting by you at lunch at work is all of a sudden changing where he normally sits and he's sitting right next to you a few days in a row, he could be trying to gauge if you're interested. So what should you do if you find yourself in a situation like this? Well, if you're not interested in the guy, just be polite, but don't do anything different than you've been doing. Now, if you are interested in this guy, I recommend that you mirror what he's been doing to you. If he's approaching you at church every now and then, you should approach him sometimes as well. If he's been sitting by you or finding you at work every now and then, you should be doing the same thing as well. A man wants to at least feel that the woman is as interested in him as he is in her. You don't need to pursue him. You don't need to exceed his interest level, but you should do your best to at least match and reflect what he's been doing to you. A Christian man knows the biblical principle that we should treat others how we want to be treated. Thus, if you're not showing interest in him and you're not responding positively to his slight signs of interest, he's going to assume that that's how you want to be treated. And so then he will usually treat you that way. On the other hand, if you're going out of your way to make a positive experience for him when he's interacting with you, then he's going to assume she wants to be treated this way as well. Number 2, a single invitation to a one-time event could be a sign that this man is trying to gauge interest in you. Sometimes a woman misses her chance with a guy who was showing interest, but she didn't even know that she missed her chance and that he was showing interest. One common example of this occurs when a guy invites a woman to some group activity or to some event. Now, if you guys are openly sharing your feelings and you're in that phase where you're maybe not fully dating, you're not a boyfriend and girlfriend, but you also know that there is some romantic interest because you verbally expressed that or it's just very clear, well, in that case, rejecting his offer to something isn't a deal breaker. If there's a conflict in schedule, it's no big deal because you know that he knows that there's already some interest level. Now, if a guy is in this other phase where there's not been interest expressed and he's trying to gauge whether or not you could be interested because he's interested in you, that's when your single rejection of his one invitation could just be the end of it for him. He's going to assume, well, she's not interested. Even if you genuinely had a conflict of interest or there was some reason you couldn't go. Now, you might think that's not fair or this type of guy is being weak and he should keep pursuing you. And there's some truth to that in some instances, but you need to know that from a man's perspective, he knows there are other women who don't see it like you do and who say, well, this guy's being creepy because I've already said no, and he keeps asking me, he should get the picture. And so most Christian guys are going to err on the side of caution because they're not sure what type of woman you are. Do you want the guy who's like really bold and keep pursuing you? Some women like that. Other women think it's creepy. And so again, he's just probably going to play it safe because he was trying to consider how his sisters in Christ might feel when he's pursuing them. So if you don't like this guy, then you don't really need to do anything. You've already sent the message. You're not interested by saying no to him. Now, if you are interested and he does invite you to something that you can't do or you're not comfortable doing at that time, or there's just some reason you can't go, I would just make sure that you encourage him to ask again, or to encourage him to pursue a different avenue. Say, oh, I really can't make it then, but I would love to do something else. I would love to invite you to this event that I'm going to. Or just say, I can't make it this time, but next time, please ask me again. I would love to go sometime. And that will usually give the guy a sign, oh, maybe she is interested. Number 3, talking about you with other people could be a sign that he's trying to gauge your interest in him. Did a guy ask one of your friends where you were? Or is he gathering information about you from mutual friends? A guy usually isn't going to be talking about you in any circumstance unless he's interested with other people. He's talking about you with other people. There's really no point to do that unless there's some slight interest. First, he wants to know if you have a good reputation, and this isn't vanity or gossip or anything like that. As a Christian man, he just wants to make sure that, the obvious green flags are present and there's no obvious red flags, that like you're not a believer or that there's some glaring issue that other people know about that he doesn't. So that's fair, and you should be doing the same thing for a guy in this type of situation. And secondly, he also is just trying to gauge whether or not maybe you've been talking about him as well. Number 4, helping you in a practical way with no strings attached might be a sign that he's trying to gauge interest in you. Is he just being nice, or is he trying to see whether or not there's some sort of romantic interest? Well, it's very possible that he's doing both. It's not wrong for a guy to just be a great Christian brother in Christ and, just go out of his way to do something nice for you and to see whether or not you're interested. Now, a mature Christian guy probably isn't going to do something nice for you in this situation where you don't have any pre-existing romantic expressions of interest. He's not going to try to do something nice and then immediately ask you out on a date, because that might put you in a weird spot, like making you feel obligated. So he'll probably do something nice and just leave it at that. But in the future, if the interactions you had while he was helping you do something were positive, he might then take that as an open door for a later invitation. And number 5, he might withdraw some attention to see if you even notice when he's subtly pursuing you, engaging your interest. Was he talking to you more, texting you, inviting you to things, but now all of a sudden he's not doing those things as much? Did he lose interest in you? Well, maybe he could have, but also it's true that if you haven't been responding in a clear, concise, and positive way towards him when he's doing these things, he might be confused, and thus he might be pulling back a little bit to see if you even notice. If you don't like him, then just, let it fade out. But if you do like him, then go out of your way to encourage him, make sure you're matching his energy level so that he knows the feelings really are mutual and you do notice that something has changed. By you amping it up a little bit to match what he was doing in the past, that will probably reignite what he was doing and probably pursue you more if things keep going well. Oftentimes a man's just looking for a little validation that he's on the right road because he doesn't want to put himself out there needlessly and not guard his heart well. Here's some related videos if you're a Christian woman and you want to be inviting towards a man who you want to pursue you. I'm Mark from ApplyGodsWord.com. I hope this was helpful. And until next time, God bless.